My wife kept saying Matthew would never do that. I asked why she didn't marry him. Turns out there was a reason. I have been married to my wife Laura for 4 years. No kids because she wanted to focus on her career first. She's a high school English teacher and I'm an operations manager at a manufacturing plant in Ohio. On paper, we're the stable couple everyone envies. Good jobs, nice house, active social life. But there's been this thing. This constant, gnawing thing that I've tried to ignore for years. My wife compares me to her ex-fiancé, constantly. His name is Matthew. They were engaged years ago but called it off before the wedding. Laura told me early in our relationship that he was more romantic and wrote poetry for her. I thought it was just nostalgia, you know. Everyone has that one ex they remember fondly, except it didn't stop there. When I installed our dishwasher myself and it leaked a bit, Laura said, Matthew could do this kind of stuff without calling anyone. He was really handy. When I forgot her mom's birthday one year, I got, Matthew never forgot important dates. You're just not as thoughtful. When I had to work late during a big equipment installation and production line reconfiguration, she hit me with, Matthew always knew how to balance work and life. He made me feel like I was his priority. I remember that one specifically because I'd been working 60-hour weeks to make sure we didn't miss our quarterly production targets during the changeover. Jobs were literally on the line, but apparently Matthew would have found a way to do it all with time left over for date nights. And the financial stuff, Jesus. When I suggested we cut back on eating out to save for a potential down payment on a rental property, Laura said, Matthew always had such clear financial plans. I never had to worry about money with him. This was after I'd shown her a detailed spreadsheet of how we could save an extra $15,000 a year. Apparently Matthew's financial plans were better, though I'm not sure how since they never actually bought a house together. It's been like this for 4 years. Every mistake I make, every little thing I do wrong, Matthew would have done it better. Matthew would have remembered. Matthew would have planned ahead. Matthew would have been more thoughtful. I've tried talking to her about it. Multiple times, I'd say, honey, it really hurts when you compare me to your ex. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough. And she'd respond with, you're being too sensitive. I'm just using examples to help you understand. Or, I'll try to stop. And then 2 weeks later, we're back to Matthew this, Matthew that. But I loved her. I kept thinking maybe I needed to be better, do more, try harder. So here's what happened last weekend. We had a game night with 2 other couples, our close friends Mike and Jen, and Paul and Amy. I'd spent the whole day cleaning the house, making homemade lasagna from scratch and setting up the board games. I was actually proud of the effort I put in. We were playing this game where you say most likely to, and everyone votes. Laura said most likely to forget an anniversary, definitely Nate. Matthew never forgot that stuff. There was this awkward laugh from everyone. I said nothing. Then we sat down to eat. Laura took one bite of my lasagna and said, this is good, babe, but you know who made the most amazing lasagna? Matthew. He had this special Italian layering technique his grandmother taught him. And something in me just snapped. I put down my fork and said, why didn't you marry him then? The table went silent. Laura stared at me. What? I said louder. If Matthew was so perfect at everything, why didn't you marry him? Why am I the one sitting here listening to how I'll never measure up? She started. Nate, that's not. I cut her off. Oh wait, I remember now, because he didn't want to marry you either. You could have heard a pin drop. Mike and Paul looked at their plates. Jen's eyes were huge. Amy grabbed her wine glass and turned away. Laura's face went white, then red. You're disgusting. How dare you? I said, I've lived for 4 years being told I'm second place to a man who dumped you. A man you worship like he's perfect, when the reality is he saw something that made him run. And I've been here, playing husband to someone who married me because I was available, not because she actually wanted me. Laura started crying and said, I can't believe you'd say this in front of our friends. She grabbed her phone, called an Uber, and left for her mom's house within 20 minutes. Our friends sat there in shock. Mike eventually said, dude, but didn't finish the sentence. They left soon after, the vibe completely destroyed. I sat alone with my cold lasagna and realized I'd just blown up my marriage in front of witnesses. But honestly, I meant every word. I'm tired of being compared to a ghost. I'm tired of feeling like a consolation prize. Laura texted me at 2 a.m. I'm staying at Mom's. You owe me an apology. We can't move forward until you apologize for humiliating me. I haven't responded. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to apologize just to keep the peace. But another part of me, the part that's been slowly dying for 7 years, is screaming that I have nothing to apologize for. Reddit, am I the asshole here? Or did I finally say what needed to be said? Edit, holy shit, I didn't expect this many responses. Reading through comments now. A lot of you are asking if Laura and Matthew still talk. I honestly don't know, but now that you mention it. Some of you are right, I should have left years ago. I guess I kept hoping things would change. Update 1, posted 5 days later. Hey everyone, Nate here again. You guys were right about a lot of things and wrong about others, but mostly right in ways I didn't want to admit. So after my last post, Laura stayed at her mom's house for 3 days. I got bombarded from her family almost immediately. Her mom called me the next morning and said, "You made my daughter cry all night. A real man apologizes even when he's not wrong, just to keep the peace." I asked her if Laura had mentioned the 4 years of comparisons. She said, "Those are just memories, not attacks. You're being insecure." Then she hung up. Laura's younger sister Megan sent me a long text about how I'm clearly insecure and shouldn't blame my wife for my own inadequacy. She said if I was more confident and actually as good as Matthew, I wouldn't be bothered by a few harmless comments. That one stung, not gonna lie. Laura came back to the house after 3 days and she came with an ultimatum. She said she'd be willing to work on the marriage if and only if I apologized for what I said at the game night. She framed it as me publicly humiliating her and being cruel. I told her I wouldn't apologize for stating the truth. I said, "You've never apologized for 4 years of making me feel inadequate. Not once." She said, "Matthew is part of my past. You need to accept that." And here's where I started paying attention to details I'd ignored before. I said, "If he's just your past, why do you know he moved to Seattle? Why do you know his salary increased last year? Why do you know he got a golden retriever?" Her face changed. She tried to recover and said, I don't know those things, you're making stuff up." But I wasn't. She'd mentioned all of those things over the past year in various contexts. I asked directly, "Are you still in contact with Matthew?" She deflected. "That's not the point. You can't control who I talk to. This is about you being insecure." We argued for another hour. She wouldn't give me a straight answer. She kept saying I was being controlling and paranoid, and that I was looking for reasons to be angry. She left again that night. Said she needed space from my toxic behavior. That was a week ago. And then yesterday I got a Facebook message that changed everything. A woman named Qley messaged me. "Hi, are you Laura's husband? I'm Matthew's fiancé. We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I agreed to a phone call. Qley told me she'd noticed Laura frequently commenting on and reacting to Matthew's Facebook posts. She thought it was weird but didn't say anything at first. Then Laura started sending DMs to Matthew, long ones, about her marriage, about me, about regrets. Qley showed me screenshots. I'm not going to post them here, but the gist. Laura told Matthew she was in an unhappy marriage with a man who doesn't measure up. She wrote, "If I hadn't settled, it would have been us walking down the aisle. And sometimes I think I married the wrong man." There was one message where she said, "I look at him and wonder what would have happened if you and I had just worked a little harder. We were so close to perfect." She painted me as controlling, jealous, and prone to angry outbursts, none of which is true. She told him I monitored her phone. I didn't. Isolated her from friends. I encouraged her girls' nights and made her feel small, rich, coming from someone who spent years telling me I wasn't good enough. She was building a narrative to justify her venting to her ex. She was positioning herself as the victim of a bad marriage to gain sympathy from the man she clearly still wanted. Matthew's responses were diplomatic but didn't shut it down hard enough in my opinion. Stuff like, "That sounds difficult. We were young. It's complicated." Not exactly encouraging her, but not exactly discouraging her either. There was one message where he said, "I hope things get better for you," which Laura apparently interpreted as him caring deeply about her situation. Qley sent me everything. Screenshots spanning 3 months of messages. She said, "I'm not okay with my fiancé being someone else's emotional support for bashing her husband. You deserve to know. I'd want someone to tell me." Her voice was shaking when we talked. She was angry and hurt, but she was also kind to me. She said, "I don't think you're any of the things she said you were. I think she needs professional help." I thanked her. I really did. That took guts. She could have just confronted Matthew and left it at that. But she thought about me, a stranger, and made sure I knew the truth. So now I know. It's not just that Laura compared me to Matthew for 7 years. She's been actively maintaining contact with him, lying to me about it, and portraying me as the villain in her little fantasy where she should have married the poet who got away. I haven't confronted Laura yet with this information. I'm gathering everything first. I've backed up our financial documents. I've started looking into what divorce might look like. I don't want to save this marriage anymore. I'm done trying to compete with a ghost. I'm done trying to be good enough for someone who's decided I never will be. The lawyer I consulted, I already called one, said my case is pretty straightforward. The house is in my name from before we were married. No kids. She makes decent money as a teacher. He said if I have proof of emotional infidelity and her misrepresenting me to others, it strengthens my position even more. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. More updates to come, I'm sure. Update 2, posted 2 weeks later back again. Things have moved fast, and there's a plot twist I genuinely didn't see coming. First, after the lawyer meeting, I realized I'd been walking on eggshells for years with Laura, but now I needed that same caution for different reasons. So I confronted her. I printed out every single screenshot Qley sent me, over 20 pages. When Laura came by the house to pick up some clothes, I laid them out on the kitchen table. I said, "Before you leave, I want you to look at these." She glanced down, saw Matthew's name, and her face went pale. She immediately said, "How did you get those? That's a violation of my privacy," I said calmly. "These came from Matthew's fiancé. Because while you were complaining about me to your ex-fiancé, you were also helping to wreck their relationship. She had every right to send these to me." Laura started scrambling. "It's not what it looks like. I was just venting. I never cheated." I cut her off. "You told him you married the wrong man. You said if you hadn't settled, you'd have walked down the aisle with him. You painted me as controlling and abusive when I've never raised my hand or my voice to you before last week. You made me the villain so you could be the tragic heroine in your little fantasy with Matthew." She tried the tears. "I made mistakes. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who understood me." "Someone who understood you." I was shaking now, but keeping my voice level. "You had a husband. I was right here, Laura. But I was never going to be enough because you were in love with an idea, not a person." She shifted tactics. "So what, you're going to divorce me over some messages? I never slept with him. I never even met up with him in person." "This is an overreaction," I said. "You emotionally checked out of this marriage years ago. Maybe from the very start. You've been lying to me about being in contact with him. You've been lying to him about who I am. The only person you're honest with is yourself, and even then I'm not sure. I'm done. I've filed for divorce." That's when she got angry, really angry. She started yelling about how I can't handle a woman with a past, how I'm throwing away 4 years over insecurity, how she deserves better than this. I just stood there and let her rage. When she was done, I said, "You're right. You do deserve better. You deserve someone who lives up to your impossible standards. Unfortunately, that person doesn't exist, and I deserve someone who actually wants to be married to me, so this works out for everyone." She grabbed her stuff and left. Slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. But here's the twist I mentioned. The next day I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Seattle area code. I answered and a man's voice said, "Nate, this is Matthew." I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. He said, "Look, I know this is weird. Qley told me she sent you those screenshots. I want you to know I wasn't trying to pursue your wife or break up your marriage." I said, "You didn't exactly shut her down either." He sighed. "You're right. I should have. I was trying to be diplomatic and it backfired. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because Qley and I were talking about Laura's patterns and I realized something you need to know. What's that? Laura did the exact same thing to me. I didn't understand at first. He explained. When Laura and I were together, she constantly compared me to her ex before me, guy named Mark. He was apparently more thoughtful, more emotionally available, better at communication. Mark would have understood this. Mark never made me feel this way. It went on for 2 years. That's why I ended the engagement. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. She had a pattern. Yeah, I thought it was just her being hung up on an ex, but now I see it differently. She builds up whoever isn't there into this perfect person, then uses that to tear down whoever is there. I don't think she'll ever be happy because she's always going to be chasing the version of someone that only exists in her head. Matthew continued, I should have warned you when you two got together, but honestly, I thought she'd changed. I wanted to believe people grow, and I was so relieved to be out of it that I just moved on. I'm sorry you went through this. I thanked him. We talked for another few minutes. He told me that Qley had been incredible through all this, that they were working through it, but it had definitely shaken their relationship. He said he'd blocked Laura completely now and wouldn't be responding to any further contact. After we hung up, I just sat there. I wasn't competing with Matthew. Matthew had lost the same competition with Mark. And whoever Laura dates next will lose to me. I'll become the romanticized ex she uses to torture them. The social fallout has started too. Qley, bless her, posted in a mutual friend group. Laura and Matthew share some overlap from their time together, about people who stay hung up on exes while trying to move forward. She didn't name names, but enough people could read between the lines. Combined with our friends from game night talking, people are starting to see the pattern. Mike checked in on me yesterday. He said, Jen and I talked and we realized Laura pulled that comparison thing all the time. We just thought it was her personality. We didn't realize how much it was hurting you. I'm sorry we didn't say something sooner. I told him not to worry about it. How would they have known? I'd hidden it well. Laura's family is still defending her, saying I'm abandoning her when she needs support. Her sister Megan actually called me to say I'm proving Laura right by being controlling and vindictive with the divorce. I didn't engage. My lawyer said not to. The divorce should be finalized in about 6 to 9 months depending on how cooperative Laura is. My lawyer thinks she'll drag it out to try to punish me, but we'll see. For now, I'm just focusing on work, hitting the gym, and spending time with friends who actually respect me. I feel lighter somehow, like I've been carrying a weight for 4 years and I finally put it down. I'll update again when the divorce is final or if anything major happens. Final update. Posted 4 months later, final update from me, and honestly I'm posting this more for closure than anything else. The divorce was finalized last week. Faster than expected because Laura's lawyer advised her to accept the settlement rather than drag it out. Here's how it broke down. House stays with me. It was mine before marriage, never added her to the deed. Split some retirement account growth from the marriage period, but I kept the majority. No long-term alimony, just 6 months of transitional support since she has a full-time job. She kept her car and personal belongings, I kept mine. Laura was shocked. She genuinely believed she'd get half the house and longer support. Her lawyer must have explained how these things actually work. When my lawyer told me she'd accepted, he said she seemed surprised things didn't work out like they do in movies. But here's where things got interesting and honestly kind of insulting. 3 days after the divorce was signed, Laura sent me an email, a long one. She wrote about how she'd started therapy and realized Matthew was just the past and that I was the good man all along. She said we could potentially reconcile in the future and that she finally understood what she'd lost. But it was the specific praise that really got me. The email was full of things like, I never appreciated how stable and reliable you were. That's so rare to find. You were always such a hard worker and provider. I took that for granted. Your practical skills and problem solving, those are what matter in a real marriage, not romantic poetry. The way you handled finances responsibly was actually incredibly mature. I see that now. I sat there reading this and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. For 4 years, she'd told me I wasn't romantic enough, wasn't exciting enough, wasn't thoughtful enough. She'd compared my practical approach to life to Matthew's passion. She'd mocked my financial planning as boring compared to Matthew's spontaneity. She'd made me feel like stability and reliability were character flaws, not strengths. And now, after she realized she wasn't getting half my house, after she found out she'd have to support herself, after she saw that her emotional affair and lies didn't win her sympathy in court, suddenly all those things she'd spent years criticizing were exactly what made me the good man all along. The timing was so transparent it was almost funny. She just found out she was getting minimal alimony and no house. Within 72 hours, I went from not as good as Matthew to the one who got away. The email ended with, "I know I made mistakes, but I think with therapy we could rebuild something even stronger. You were always the right choice, I just couldn't see it. Can we meet for coffee to talk?" I read it twice. Then I replied with one sentence. "I hope therapy helps you stop repeating this pattern with your next partner. But for me, you're the past now." I haven't heard from her since that reply. Matthew and Qley got married last month. Qley sent me an email, just a brief one, thanking me for not blaming Matthew and saying they'd both blocked Laura permanently. She said the whole experience actually strengthened their relationship because they had to work through trust issues together. I'm genuinely happy for them. As for Laura, I heard through mutual friends that she moved into an apartment with a roommate. She's been trying to control the narrative, telling people I was too insecure to handle her having a past. But enough people know the full story now that it's not working. Even her mom called me once, not to apologize, but to say she was exhausted by the drama. Her sister Megan stopped texting me angry messages after Qley's post made the rounds and more context came out. Now for me, I've started hosting friends again. Had Kyle, Mike, and Paul over for dinner last Friday. I made pasta, a carbonara that Laura once told me was nothing like the authentic one Matthew learned to make in Italy. Everyone raved about it. Kyle joked, "Man, I bet even Matthew would ask for this recipe." And I laughed. Actually laughed. It was the first time hearing Matthew's name didn't make my chest tight. I'm not dating yet. I'm not ready. But I'm not opposed to it eventually. My therapist says I need to work on recognizing green flags versus red flags, on not settling for someone just because they're available. Fair point. Though Mike's wife Jen has already tried to set me up with her coworker. I politely declined for now, but I appreciated the thought. The house feels different now. Lighter. I've been slowly redecorating, got rid of the couch Laura picked out that I never liked, painted the guest room a deep blue that I wanted. She always said blue was too dark. Hung up some movie posters in my office that she thought were juvenile. Put my gaming PC back in the living room instead of hiding it in the basement. Small things that make it feel like mine again. Like I'm allowed to exist in my own space without apologizing for who I am. Last night, I was thinking about everything and I realized something. For 7 years, I thought I was competing with one man, with Matthew specifically. I thought if I could just be better than him, Laura would finally be satisfied. But I wasn't competing with Matthew at all. I was competing with an impossible ideal that existed only in Laura's head. A person who couldn't exist because no real human being is perfect. Matthew lost that competition with Mark. I lost it with Matthew. Her next partner will lose it with me. The only winning move was to stop playing the game. Thanks, Reddit, for opening my eyes when I was too deep in it to see clearly. You guys probably saved me years of additional misery. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm remembering who I was before I spent every day trying to measure up to a ghost. And that guy, he's pretty decent.